Thank you for staying with us, and welcome back to Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net. This is Carol Parisi. Today, Jack Roser and myself are speaking with Jim Edwards. And during the break, we were talking about Gemütlichkeit. No, not really. We were talking about what Rick Perry said. And Jim,
you had a good condensation of that.
Three things.
Well, he made it very simple, in my view, which impressed me. And he said he was talking about creating an environment of creating jobs and expanding business in Texas. And he mentioned three words. He reduced taxation, he reduced regulation, and he reduced litigation. Yeah. And so those three things, business people get that immediately.
Right.
I did. And what's ironic is those are the things that work. And just this morning I read about Obama out there on his jobs plan thing. The Republicans came up with a partial jobs bill that it talks about reducing regulation, talks about reducing taxation. It doesn't get into litigation yet, but those are the things that can create jobs. And Obama says, now that's a plan, but that's not a jobs plan. Mine is the one. And so he just doesn't get it. The poor man is as smart as people think he is. He doesn't have a clue how to run a country or run a business.
Well, he's a bureaucrat. He's never ran as much as a hot dog stand or a lemonade stand.
Well, he knows how to motivate people, doesn't he? For example, he came out with talking about how can a leader do this, Jack? Leader of a business, Carol, you lead a couple of organizations. Obama's out there talking about that maybe they just don't understand it, just mocking the Republicans. So we're going to have to pick it apart and deal with one part at a time, talking about his jobs bill, but he's mocking them sarcastically. How can a leader get anything done doing that type of thing?
He's clearly not a leader.
The trouble is he's enthralled to his supporters. There's too many wacko left-wing people that are part of his crowd. And there's also all of the money he gets from the unions, which makes everything corrupt right there. The working man isn't represented well by their unions when the unions drive General Motors into bankruptcy, for instance, and the teachers' unions here have driven this whole state into bankruptcy with their crazy pensions, which incidentally, the teachers who have been paying all of their money into dues for the IEA, the Illinois Education Association, they pay the dues into the union, which turns around and spends 80% of it on politics, and with the result that they've now bankrupted the pension funds that the teachers thought they were going to get big pensions. Well, that's all bankrupted, the whole state of Illinois, with the craziness of the unions. So Obama and the Democratic leaders here in Illinois are all thrall to some special interests that are as bad or worse than the bankers that were irresponsible.
You know what's so funny is we have these occupiers that are talking about special interests, but when you look at some of the news clips, you see the purple shirts, SEIU for Obama. This is clearly the president's crowd that is protesting.
And there's one other stinking bunch that's not in an SEIU uniform, and it is those vulture lawyers, class action lawyers, that are getting rich off of it, like that fellow that ran for president in the last election, or election before last. You can saw how bad he ran amok in his morals as well, but he made enough money suing people.
John Edwards?
John Edwards.
Any relation,
yes,
Jim Edwards?
An example of the class action suits. And that's what's raising the cost of ever so many things, particularly in medicine. Obama is in thrall to these people that give him millions and millions of dollars into his political fund, and the class action attorneys, which are a curse to that otherwise remarkably good profession of decent attorneys. But that bunch is loaded with money, and that's what's funding Madigan downstate and Obama. And what they've done is put the doctors in a position where they have to practice defensive medicine. And it is believed, and I think very properly, that those class action attorneys add about 30% to the cost of medicine. Doctors have to be very careful in what they advise for you. Too careful, because they're just following the certain things that they can do without getting sued, and anything beyond that that in their judgment might, and a lot of doctors have very good judgment in a broad way, they can't bring anything on the edge into it or they'll be sued. Right. The result that they're doing a lot of tests and so forth that aren't really necessary, but they do to keep the class action attorneys off of them. And Obama and the Democrats downstate and Springfield, they're all in on getting the juice out of the class action attorneys. They're a curse.
Well, it's funny because healthcare reform never had any tort reform in it. But now, Jim, you talked about the taxation, regulation, and litigation, because clearly government does not create jobs, of course, unless they're government jobs. They create a good and healthy environment. And let's talk about some candidates, because candidates that become legislators need to clearly have the political will to go ahead and implement something like a tort reform in a health care or pension reform right here in Illinois. What have you been doing the past few months here?
Well, first of all, I don't think Illinois is going to get straightened out until we get decent, right-thinking, conservative-type people elected, because they're going to automatically do what's right. The ones I talk to anyway. When I've talked to people all over the state, and people that have small business backgrounds that understand how to balance a budget and the difference between a debit and a credit, you know, they've got some experience behind it, but they have some values, conservative values. They all have the same message, that we've got to do these things like Rick Perry is talking about. You know, when you look at you mentioned the Occupy Wall Street crowd. You know, by the way, in the last couple of days, I heard that 4 different groups have endorsed them. One is the Nazi Party of the United States, the Communist Party of the United States, Communist China, and guess who's in that crowd? China. Barack Obama.
Yep.
Yeah, so he actually endorsed this riotous bunch.
I think he's behind this thing. You know, one of the things the Democrats are good at is, well, messaging, but not just messaging, but once a high leader like an Obama talks about shovel-ready projects, they're all talking about shovel-ready projects. And when they talk about the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, now all these occupiers are doing the same thing, but the difference is that these Occupy people, you know, most of them, could you imagine any of these people that I've seen that work hard? I mean, Jack, did you have to work hard when you started your business? You've done pretty well now, but there were many years of working hard and working long hours and sacrifice.
And just because you start a business doesn't mean you're going to be successful either.
They can't comprehend that.
It's a risk-reward thing. There's a lot of people that start businesses that don't become successful. And, you know, nobody talks about them, and you don't talk about the personal sacrifice that is made of a successful business person.
And here's the thing. They talk about the rich getting richer.
80% of the small businesses fail within 5 years.
Yep.
That's pretty much what it is.
I've been there.
But many of these people come back and try again.
But the policies that have been implemented by this administration is taking away the initiative and the innovation to have someone go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to take a shot. I want my shot at that American dream. But now you're speaking, Jim, to some of candidates that are going to potentially be on the ballot here in Illinois. You say a lot of them are small business owners. You had something last year about how the Democrat Party and the Republican Party is such a direct dichotomy, where the Democrats had attorneys that ran for office and the Republicans have business owners.
Well, we like small business people, number one, for a couple of reasons, by the way. They've got the experience to understand how to run a business and how to make ends meet, how to balance budgets. But secondly, we like them to keep those businesses because we don't want them to go to Springfield and feel like they have to get reelected. So they always have something to go back to.
Like a Tom Morrison.
Like a Tom Morrison. In the state of Illinois, there's over 20,000 small businessmen that belong to the NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business. And there's about 600,000 nationally. There are one heck of a lot of guys running small businesses with an average size of 5 people.
Well, you know what?
And they're leaving Illinois, and Governor Quinn doesn't care about them.
I was all alone. When I got 5 people, I felt pretty good.
Yep.
Well, Governor Quinn, if you have a big, humongous business, then he's liable to put some money in you to keep you. But he's letting the small ones go left and right.
Isn't that kind of corporate
Indiana.
cronyism? Isn't that what those Wall Street protesters? You know what? When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about a good, healthy environment.